What is up, guys? Welcome to another episode of Rick Renegade's Metal Collection, and this is episode 7 of Shuffle of Death. So, yeah, we got some good ones today. So pretty random, too, I gotta say. So, okay. So I will say, I was pretty happy with some of these, because some of these I do like to talk about. And, the first one that it decided to choose for me was Annihilator, Set the World on Fire. So this is the third Annihilator album. This came out in 1993. Gets a 59% on Metal Archives. And personally, while I kind of understand why it's lower, I think that's too low. And we'll get to that. So Annihilator put out 2 really good technical thrash albums, and then I guess they kind of had to follow suit with a lot of what was going on in the 90s. A lot of thrash bands were trying to change their sound to try to sell out, quote unquote. And that's kind of what this is with Annihilator. You could put this beside like The Ritual by Testament, or Countdown to Extinction, just whatever. But is it good? Well, I will say this. There is a lot of radio-friendly type ideas on this album, but they're really well done. I mean, really, really well done. I personally like every song on the album. Am I always in the mood for every song on the album? Not necessarily. I'm usually more into the heavier tracks, but some of the softer melodic ones are still pretty good if I'm in the right mood. For instance, like, it tries to be somewhat thrash, like Set the World on Fire. The title track starts off making you think it's going to be a thrash album, then it's not. Then you got No Zone, Bats in the Belfry, some good heavy tracks. Then you got a totally 80s ballad with Phoenix Rising, which is actually really good. Night Jumps Queen is awesome. But you got some soft tracks like Sounds Good to Me. Snake in the Grass is kind of like half and half. It's a little bit heavy, it's a little bit soft, but it actually ends with Brain Dance, which is the closest thing to the past 2 albums, but it's a little more of a goofy song. But anyway, I think the music here is good. I could put it up there with the best of like the early 90s metal sellout albums. And the production is pretty good, although I wouldn't say it's as good as like Countdown to Extinction or even The Ritual by Testament. It still sounds good. The worst issue is, so this also has their third singer in 3 albums, Aaron Randall, and sometimes it sounds like he has a lisp, and he does not. I heard that it was just cheap microphones. I don't know how cheap, but that's just what I've heard. But anyway, it's a good album. Don't necessarily pass it up. I would probably give it like an 85% at least. Next. Oh. So we got a new trend, apparently. Apparently, my phone likes to pick Holy Moses now. This is like the second one in 7 videos that it's chose. So this one came out in 86, the year I was born. 74% on Metal Archives. Now, I'm going to say that's actually fair. And this is the first Holy Moses album. Okay, now why does it get 74%, and why do I kind of agree with that? Well, I love Finish with the Dogs, their second album. It's like one of the greatest thrash albums of all time. This is not quite as interesting as that. It's not quite as intense. And the ideas, I don't think, are quite as interesting or fresh. But it's not bad. It's heavy. It's a good listen. Definitely kind of a darker album. Kind of puts me somewhat in the mind of like a German classic like Branded and Exiled by Running Wild. It's kind of like a speed metal sort of thing, something like that at times. Not that that's really a speed metal album necessarily, but it just kind of has some... it kind of reminds me of it a little bit, but unlike Branded and Exiled, I think Running Wild has a little more the songs are a little more memorable, better choruses, just things that stick in your head a little better. While this is an okay start, I do think this band gets a lot better, but definitely don't pass it up though. It's still pretty good. Um, Next, oh, this one's I like to talk about this one because I'm a defender of it. If I can get it out of the bag. Okay, so Megadeth 13. Yeah, this one's definitely a highly controversial release for the band because it followed a really, really good later Megadeth album called Endgame. I don't know. I had to think about that. So this came out in 2000. It says 2011. It really feels like it came out later than that. I guess it didn't. I don't know. Time flies. This gets a 64%, and my gosh, man, that is so unfair in my opinion. And this is their 13th album. Surprise, surprise. There's a theme, and there's actually 13 tracks. 13 ways to see the devil in my eyes, or whatever the lyrics are to that song. So why do I defend this, and why is it controversial? Okay, well, Endgame was a thrash return. Okay, it was a thrash album, and probably the thrashiest thing they've done since Rust in Peace. But this one came out, and people were probably expecting more of that. We got Chris Broderick on guitar again, which is always a great thing. But it wasn't as thrashy. I mean, there's still some thrashy moments, and it still picks up some high tempos, here and there. But it really doesn't like go balls to the wall thrash like Endgame, and I think that disappointed people. But honestly, I think the songs here are really memorable. I really like about everything on here, honestly. And I believe there's a couple of re-recorded tracks, like New World Order is not originally from this era. I think it's actually an older song and stuff like that. People probably didn't like that, but I don't know. Maybe he was just trying to throw stuff on there to make it 13 tracks. I don't know. I actually listened to this whole thing before doing this video, and I don't know. I actually, when I first got it, I liked it. I really it didn't have to grow on me or anything. And then I kind of like stopped listening to it because I just kept getting people's, their opinions of it in my head, and I would stop listening to it for a while, and I gave it a listen again. I'm like, dude, I remember why I like this. I think the choruses, the solos, the riffs, I think it's all really good. I mean, some of the lyrics, whether I agree with some of his lyrics and stuff here and there, but sometimes some things he says just sounds cheesy. I don't know the way he says it. It's like the delivery of it, I guess. And the vocals are really not that great. I like Dave Mustaine's voice like in the earlier days, but it just, I don't know. Modern Dave Mustaine vocals are not the greatest, but it's okay. It's okay. But yeah, I don't know. I really think this whole album's good. Public Enemy #1's great. Sudden Death is good. The opening track. We the People's really good. I don't know. Deadly Nightshade. I just like pretty much the whole thing. So yes, I'm a defender of it. I am a defender. Please give it another listen with an open mind. You might like this album. Okay. Next. This is a personal favorite of mine. And I remember when I finally got this, and it was like probably around 2016, 17 when I finally got it. But Wargasm's Why Play Around? Oh my gosh, I love this album. Okay, so this came out in 88, and actually gets an 88% on Metal Archives. Dude, I would give it more than that. I would give it at least like a 95 or something. Like, this is really, really good stuff. And this is their first album. And personally, from what I've heard out of the first two albums, this is the one I like the most. So they're from the East Coast. Probably like Malaya Rage area. Maybe that sort of thing. I've heard Malaya Rage talk about Wargasm before. So, in a weird way, I kind of hear a little bit of similarities to Malaya Rage in some of the riffs, but here and there. But it's a lot more technical. Uh, I have to say, everything on here is just memorable. I love the guitar sounds. I love the riffs. Their drummer is amazing. I don't really know his name, but he's really good and can do some crazy, crazy double bass just here and there, like it's easy to him, which it is, I'm sure. The vocals here also, they're kind of unique. A lot of people like to compare him to Algie Ward of Tank, the new wave of British heavy metal band, and makes sense. Kind of does sound like him a little bit. Not a one for one comparison, like 100%, but yeah, I can totally hear that. And there's just so much about this that's so good. Like I can't really give you, uh, like I can't explain how good this is in words. You just got to listen to it. Now, do I think it's like up there with like Rust in Peace or Master of Puppets? Is it like that tier? No, but still, it's way up there though. I mean, it's as good as any like Overkill album or Exodus album. Personally, I like it better than Exodus. Yeah, I like it better than Exodus actually. So yeah, that's Wargasm. Why play around? Exactly right. Why play around? Just get it. Next, this one is probably the most unique out of all of them, like the most out of place, I would say. Vanishing Point. And of course, I got another one of these stickers here from McKay's Books, CDs, Movies, and More. And let's see here, was it North Carolina, Greensboro, North Carolina? Back when I used to travel. Yeah, I used to find like stacks of CDs from McKay's. It was awesome. Like they would all be super cheap. I don't know what they always got in like these old like late '90s, early 2000s power metal albums. Like I don't know how they did it, but they just kept getting them in. I just kept buying them every time I went down there. But anyway, Vanishing Point. Oh yeah, and I spent not even $4 on this. Like whatever. So this band is from Australia. It is a power metal album, as I've said just a second ago. But it's not your typical power metal. It's not your Dungeons and Dragons speed metal, crazy shred, neoclassical. None of that. Honestly, this album's pretty laid back. Nothing's really fast. It's not anything you're gonna bang your head to that much. I'll be honest. It's not one of those. In some ways, man, it's almost more hard rock in the power metal realm. I mean, it's not even really that heavy, but it is. Okay, well, let's give it some info. Okay, this came out in the year 2000. It gets a 70% on Metal Archives. Now, I will say that's kind of fair. I might be able to give it like an 80, maybe like an 80 to be fair, 80%. And I'll explain why. And this is their second album, I guess. So I don't have any more Vanishing Point albums. This is the only one I have. It was just like a weird blind buy. The music is very melodic, and I do like the melodies. It's got a very nice, just good vibe. It just feels good to listen to. But the problem is, I feel like the whole album is kind of samey from beginning to end, and the album is like an hour and 8 minutes. Okay, so that's a very, very long album to listen to, and I did listen to it all the way, and I just think that's just too long for what you got here. I think that's almost too long for any album, unless you've got like some sort of a concept album that really needs an hour and 8 minutes. But a lot of them can be done in under an hour and be just fine. So it's too long. A lot of the songs are too samey. It could have been trimmed down, cut the fat, but it is a good listen. If you probably won't want to sit and listen to the whole thing, but it's good to listen to maybe 5 or 6 tracks and then just call it good and move on to something else. It is good for that. I like it. Almost has like a very emotional type of sound to it. Not like emo type of emotional, but just I don't know. check it out. It's not really bad, but it's definitely not Rhapsody or Symphony X or Blind Guardian or anything like crazy like that, but it's good. Anyway, that is my latest Shuffle of Death that my phone has picked for me, and not a bad one. I actually enjoy these albums. So if you like this video, like, subscribe. See you next time. Stay metal.